Welcome back to another episode of the Scale Your Real Estate Podcast. This is with my dear friend, Tiago. He's in my Inner Circle Mastermind program, so I get to work with him quite a bit. But this guy scaled to 61 units in 1 year. So after he bought his first property, 12 months from the date he bought his first property, he had 61 units. And he breaks down his 3 pillars to scale quickly. And that is laid out in this episode. So it's a great one. This guy's also like just a super badass success. He's an ultra runner. He's run over 100 miles at one time, which is just crazy insane. And he's also an Ironman, which I've done half Ironmans. I've never actually completed and done a full one. That's on the bucket list someday. But this guy is really, he's family oriented. He's got the financial success, and he's really playing the co-living space in a really cool way. So enjoy this episode, and I'll see you guys in a moment. So, man, I want to start off, and I actually don't even know the answer to this question. I was thinking about it. How did you get into real estate in the first place?
Oh my gosh. I'm Portuguese by nature. So, and we Portuguese are very pessimist. We don't believe in much on what we can bring normally, and everything that we are going to do it's a mess. That's our mindset. When I move here, I start opening up much wider in terms of what can I do with my life, right? And when I realize what this country has to offer, I jump into it. I had my W-2 here, and I was thinking what I'm going to do with my available time, because I don't want to be stuck in my W-2 forever. And then I start looking into the first thing, which was stock market. And at the time, I was reading the investor book that talks about a little bit about the structure that Warren Buffett have, and the authors say clearly, well, only 5% of this type of investors can really provide some profits. And then I start doing math and saying, well, do I belong that 5%? Do you think I can compete with algorithms and AI to be on that 5%? No. Therefore, I select another one, which was the real estate. And the first move was really to buy a book from Brandon Turner, How to Buy Real Estate. And that was it. I follow it as a receipt, to be honest. He was saying buy duplex side by side. That was exactly my first 2 properties. I just follow it.
Wow. And so what does financial freedom, financial freedom is a word that's thrown out there a lot. And I want to get into how you bought those properties, because I think that's really interesting and kind of how you scaled your portfolio. But what does financial freedom mean to you if someone says, I feel like that's a term that's thrown here and there. Everybody uses that term differently. But what does it mean to you, Tiago?
For me, it's the capability to say no. I think that's the most important thing. It allows me to say no to the things that I think it's a waste of time and doesn't complement me. And that freedom also allows me to be together to the person that I love, and be surrounded by them, and making sure that I live my life with them. So that capability of choice. I didn't talk about money. I didn't talk about any value. It's all a capability of being able to choose whatever you want to do next.
I've actually never heard it put that way. The ability to say no is what financial freedom means to you. I remember you and I were at an event together. This is where I first met you, I think, was at Diego's Mastermind. And we were on the boat in Puerto Rico, off the coast of Puerto Rico. And we were having fun, and it was just a beautiful time. And I think one of the questions you asked me was just like, hey, what's enough?
Yes.
How much is enough? And I think that's a question that a lot of people ask, especially if they've been in this world for a while. What's that number? So what is enough for you? I don't think I ever asked you that question back. Is it just covering your W-2? Is it beyond that? Have you budgeted it out? How do you define enough?
Well, that's an amazing question, because I always keep asking that to all of the big mindsets guys, and I think the answer relies on it's not a number. It's a status on you feel that the income that is coming fulfills all your needs. Because whenever I talk with big shots and I heard, well, I have 10 million, I have 20 million, I have 100 million, and I think to myself, I don't need that. I don't need to reach that level, right? I just need to make sure that I have enough and not really money on the bank, but cash flowing coming in monthly that I'm able to enjoy what I want to do. That's it. I mean, I don't need that 10 million on the bank. I just need the capability to choose whatever I want to do next. Again, coming to the first question.
It keeps you from having to compete with other people too. A lot of people
Correct.
get into the game, and there's always another level. But for you, it's truly about you, your family. That's why I love you, man. I feel like this is not about you having to prove to anybody that you're somebody. It's like, nope, you want to take care of your family and be able to have that choice. I love that.
Correct, and maybe it's also because of the fact I'm not there, but and I'm a bit far from there. But when I hear people saying, "Oh, I have 10 million, but I really want to get my 20 million," I said, "Why? I mean, what's your trigger point? Is really just a number games? Well, I'm not playing in that league for sure."
Right. So tell us a little bit about how you bought. So you bought these duplexes. You said side-by-side duplexes. I love that I hope the listeners take away from this. You read the book and you just implemented what they told you to do. And I think that that's so cool because so many people read it and they try to like mess with it, and you just said, okay, if he said he's going to do it, I'm going to do it here. How did you buy those first properties? And tell us a little bit about how you scaled your real estate portfolio from that first duplex.
So I keep saying to everybody, the most painful deal, it's always the first one. It's the most difficult one. So I started reading that book in December 2019, and it took me 8 months to get my first property, that duplex in Alabama. And through that, I passed several steps. I was thinking constantly that I don't have much time to dedicate to real estate, so I'm going to the fastest route. So I was contacting turnkey properties management, and they were providing a product I didn't like. Then I moved to Roofstock, and that's where I found my first property.
What is Roofstock?
Roofstock is a marketplace for you and me to place our own investing properties on the market without having a realtor in the middle, meaning that you can reach out to sellers that want to sell their own property with tenants in place, and you can reach out to them and you can lowball everybody, and you will get an answer.
Wow. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's very nice, and they have a very good tooling that you can use.
Is it nationwide or is it only for specific cities? And it's nationwide.
Okay. Although a tip, if you don't know the market that you want to invest, go check Roofstock and see where the biggest portfolio they have, and those are the good markets to go. So those are cash flow markets.
So you started looking at Roofstock. You started buying these properties. Did you just buy them traditionally, or how did you end up purchasing them?
So the first one was conventional. I didn't know much about real estate. Then I joined a mastermind, and that is one of my 3 pillars that I was able to scale as I did, because in the end, in my first year, I was able to acquire 61 units.
Wow! In your first year?
In my first year. So after I signed that duplex in Alabama, from that point in time, it took me 1 year to get 61 doors. Yes.
That is impressive. Okay, let's dive into that.
It was in steroids for sure. So the first pillar is networking. So I advise everybody to find your niche, find your team, and hook to them. And for sure, you will be surrounded by people that know where you should go and look for guidance. And that's where I found in my mastermind at the time. I learned a lot. I was able to grow as an investor, which I think is very important. And then I found my second pillar, which is partnerships. And here, since I was out of state investor, I live in Dallas, but I was investing in markets that are cash flowing better than here. So I need someone that was going to be my boots on the ground. And I found that person there in my mastermind. So that's the second pillar that I will keep saying to people: if you want to scale, you need to partner. So don't want to be don't want to be doing everything by yourself. You need to partner in order to be able to scale it.
Let me before you give us your third pillar, I want to ask two questions about that. What have you found, if a new investor is listening to this right now, what have you found are the best places? Like, because there's millions of places to network. You can go to Facebook groups, you can go to meetup groups on, meetup.com or whatever. So what have you found to be the most profitable, just ways to network with other investors? Where should someone go if they want to kind of just cut through the BS and go right to where they can make deals? What would you suggest to them?
I would say first go to local REIs, so where you can see real estate meetups. That's where you meet people that know where and know exactly the market that you are if you want to invest locally, right? If you want to go out of state, then you need to find a broader team, a broader mastermind that you are able to hook up, right? But I would say that majority of the information of real estate, it's already available. It's public. You have a bunch of YouTube videos out there that explains A to B on how to become a real estate investor. I just feel that joining a mastermind will get you to the next level. It will bring you more close relationships, someone that you can ask specifically your problems and have a quick answer. So that's like a mentor, right? And third, you can find partners there very easily. So I would always recommend to find a similar ecosystem.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, I think that's so gold. I hope people are really listening to that. When you go to a mastermind, you also have a certain level of seriousness, right? That people event. Anybody can show up to a free event, but when someone actually puts money down, it's like, hey, there's some commitment. It doesn't mean they're a perfect partner yet, but it does mean that you both have kind of leveled up your commitment. There's someone that's really committed to learning real estate or co-living or whatever it is, becoming financially free, whatever the mastermind's actually about. So I love that. My second question for you was just going to be, you've really used partnerships very well. And I wanted to ask you if there's any tips or tricks or just principles that you've used to vet your partners, because everybody, like, partnerships, in my experience, can be one of two things. They can be amazing, and it's like, oh my gosh, how did I ever run my business without this person? And I've been in partnerships where I'm like, oh my gosh, get me out of this partnership as fast as possible. So how do you think about partnerships, and what advice would you have for someone looking to partner with somebody in the right way and to vet their potential partners better?
So it's like a wedding, right? I would say you need to date a little bit before you sign the contract, before you get married, right? So do small projects with them before you commit. That's the first point. The second one, bring the difficult questions up front. I know that we are aligning. I know that we have somehow the same goals, but what happens if something wrongs, right? What happens if you don't want to work anymore on the partnership? What happens if one of us died? How can we handle that? What happens if you misbehave and you're not doing your role, right? Those questions need to be asked up front, so you know what is coming, right? And perfectly, if you can put them in a operating agreement, that would be even better, because in the end, if the partnership goes offside, ultimately that's the paper that's going to manage the relationship up forward. So
right,
be careful with that.
Everything starts with trust, but then if that trust disappears for whatever reason, it's going to fall back to that piece of paper.
Yeah, I mean, people have different lives, right? And there are outside environments that can really influence the partnership, right? And that's one point. The second one is money changes people, unfortunately, and sometimes people change, can get greedy, and different goals appear. So be careful with that as well.
Well said. So networking is one of your pillars to scaling fast. Partnerships is another one of your pillars to scaling fast. What's that third pillar, and how did that help you scale?
The one I love it more, creative financing. So during that first year, from 0 to 61 units, I was buying every month new properties, always from a long-term rental perspective. I was not flipping, I was not reselling, wholesaling, no, but buying them to hold them. And then I realized, well, my money is about to end. What can I do here? And that's when I learned about seller finance, and I just love it. It's my favorite strategy because the way I see it, it's a win-win for both parties, from the seller and from the buyer perspective. And that's how you need to play when you're trying to get a seller finance deal. In this case, so for those that don't know, seller finance is when the seller becomes your bank. So therefore, you don't need to go to get the approval from the bank. You don't need to run your numbers in terms of if you're allowed, your DTI can accept that. No, it's just to build the trust between you and the seller, and that's the most important thing to make sure that the deal goes on. So when I discover seller finance, whenever I see a deal, I always ask, hey, is this open for seller finance? And then most probably the person doesn't understand that what it is, and then I explain, and I keep trying to put myself in the seller's shoes to see how can I leverage the seller finance strategy to help him as well, right? For example, we had a couple that was willing to sell their property, and they were saying, well, we want to move to Florida. I said, okay, so how much do you need for down payment for that house in Florida? Oh, just 20K. Okay, so I can bring you that 20K, and after that you will be getting a rent type of income, so you don't you don't stop receiving money as you were doing up to now, but instead of you relying on the tenants to pay you, I will be the one that will secure your monthly payment, right? And that really resonates with them because they didn't want to pay much in taxes, so and they wanted that income steady. And then they bring another question is, okay, so what happened if for some reason we pass out, and I told them, well, in that case the debt goes to your family, right? So you don't need to worry about that. I said, okay, so we are good with that. Let's move forward. But from my experience, the biggest motivations for seller be willing to accept seller finance is really the tax benefits around that.
Okay, so you're saying like that's the biggest motivation for someone to give you seller financing would be you explaining to them like, hey, I could go get a loan and give you, let's just call it, let's say it's a $400,000 house, and I can give you $400,000, but then you're going to have to pay taxes on that. But imagine getting that $400,000 plus me paying you a little bit of an interest on that, and then getting it over time, and you don't have to pay all that interest. You don't have to pay all that taxes at once. Do I explain that correctly? You're saying that's one of the biggest motivators for sellers to want to do seller financing.
That's correct. Yes. So because the capital gain normally it's big when you pay up front. In this case, you are diluting it in different years, depending on the years that you agree with the seller. That will be the payout, right?
So does seller financing work better with someone, and these may be silly questions, but I'm not a seller financing expert. I'm learning about this. I want to become an expert in this because I really want to start getting more co-living properties off market. That's really my goal. And just, co-living's great. We've been able to find stuff on market, but I feel like if I can find stuff off market, why not? Right? Like that,
Yes.
I can probably get better deals and then use creative financing like you're talking about. So does seller financing work better when that person who you're asking to give you seller financing owns the home in cash? Does that work the easiest?
They have the full ownership. Yes, there is no loan on the property. The problem is if there is a loan on a property, someone needs to pay the bank, right? And then you lose your leverage, because you want to use seller finance because you want to move to bring a reduced amount of money up front. Normally you can negotiate 5 to 10% as down payment, and then everything else it's paid in the mortgage style, right? If there is a mortgage already towards the bank, if it is 50%, if it is 25% still to pay off, you need to bring that to the table in order to close, and therefore you lose that advantage of bringing low value to the closing table. That your cash on cash will be affected, right? So you lose your leverage. So in order for this to work for both ends, seller and the buyer, I would say the best persona to target is old landlords that are just tired of being landlords. They own the property on and right, so there is no bank involved, and people that are close to retired. So that is my best persona for being able to close seller financing.
So you target people who own their homes in cash because that's going to be the easiest conversation to have for seller financing. It's going to you're eliminating that conversation of like, well, what do I do about my loan? And there's a whole nother conversation you could have about like taking over their loan and all of that, but that just adds to the complication of it.
That's a subject too, right? Strategy, it's a different one where you assume the loan. Well, sometimes you assume, meaning that the bank is okay and is informed about that. That normally happens on commercial buildings. But in single family homes, that doesn't happen. Although you start paying the loan, but it's still in the name of the seller, right? And there's some risks associated with that, because if the bank knows, they will call it for sure. So there's some risk associated. Versus a seller finance, there is no risk. The seller receives a note saying that I own X amount of dollars, and that this is the way I'm paying it. And second one, he will be part of on the lien of the deed for that specific property. So he's covered. If I don't pay him, he can always recover the property.
I'm all about making things as simple as possible. So, if I was going to get into the seller financing world and I just wanted to kind of dip my toe in and not get into all the complications of subject to, I would, like you're saying, and so I like your advice. I just want to kind of bring it to the surface for the listeners of like, I like your advice of like, let's start with people who own their homes cash. Let's start learning that game, because that's a simpler conversation to have. It's an easier conversation to have, kind of get you started in the whole seller financing game. So take me through. So I live in a neighborhood right now. I'm actually looking over this lake. It's on a small lake here in South Charlotte. And there's a very loose HOA. You can actually, even though the neighbors don't like it, you are allowed to Airbnb in this neighborhood. And there's this beautiful house. I don't know if they own it cash or not, but it's been on the market for like almost 8 months. And they're asking like 1.75 million. I mean, it's a pretty good size house. And I just reached out to my agent yesterday and was like, hey, reach out and see if they're willing to seller finance, just because I thought it could be a really creative deal. So coach me on this, because I don't know everything I'm doing in the seller financing world. So coach me, let's assume they do own it cash. And I want to buy it with as little money down, with the least interest rate possible. And I want to Airbnb this thing and just have this great house on the lake to Airbnb. So how would I go about that? How should I explain that? Just like coach me through that situation. Like what would you do if you were me?
Okay. So the first block that I see there, I see realtors in the middle. And that somehow brings some blocking points. First, you need to understand if you are working with a real estate friendly agent. I'm assuming I assume you are. So we are covered there. So he can explain clearly what is a seller finance. The second one is the seller's agent. Does he know what is seller finance? So I lost a deal in Kansas City. It was 1.4 million just because the seller agent didn't allow us to talk directly to the seller and explain him, and he was not being able to explain what was the seller finance to the seller. So we lost that just because there are so many bridges that you need to end up that communication. So if you are able to reach and talk directly to the seller, it's a bonus and it's a win from the start. So if you can reach out to the seller agent and ask, can we meet the seller even with the agent present? We don't mind. We just need to get a connection and build trust, right? So that's the first step. The second one is really to try to understand if he owns it, right? If let's assume he does, and then we just need to understand why is he selling. Trying to understand what is motivation for the sell. Does he need the cash? Does he want to invest in another place? Where can we help him invest in that specific place? So try to build that bridge and that trust. After that, ask him, hey, how much do you want to pay in taxes, right? Because if you're going to get this amount of money, you're pretty going to pay a bunch of money to Uncle Sam. So why don't we work here on a solution that would divert those tax payments? And with that conversation, you try to understand what does it really need, right? And with that, you start building your proposal. And then you can start thinking on what will be the down payment. Is he willing to have 5, 10, 15%? And that's why you need to ask him, how much do you need for the next project, right? Then you start running your numbers and make sure that you can stretch your interest rates up to a certain point in order for you to understand how much on a mortgage perspective are you going to pay on a monthly basis, right? And then the other question that I always ask is, okay, so we are going to come up with this mortgage payment. So, but when do you really want your full money back? And that's the balloon payment. Normally it tends to go for 5 to 15 years. But it really depends on the seller for how much time does he want to defer those tax payments. So again, that's why I think it's so important to get this trust, to build this trust with the seller, because you understand what he wants to do, why he's selling, and then you build your proposal based on those assumptions. And then there is a match. Then he understands, well, this is a win-win situation, right?
So well explained, man. It's so well explained. That's the most clearly I think I've ever heard like how to do it explained. Very well done. So it's what I hear you saying is like, look, if you're trying to do seller financing and there's agents involved, it's going to be more difficult because you're adding these two middlemen. But it's not impossible. I also hear you saying, hey, if you have a realtor that understands seller financing and they can talk to the other realtor and they understand seller financing, or you can talk directly to the seller, that could allow your seller financing deal to actually go through. So it's not impossible, but maybe more difficult. And the second thing that I loved that you said is just to ask this question. I love asking questions. My dad taught me to ask he taught me to ask really good questions. So the question of how much do you want to pay in taxes is a great question because it immediately gets the other person to think about, oh, shoot, like maybe I forgot I was going to pay money in taxes. But that's going to get them to think about the negatives of just selling their house the traditional way and hopefully bring them a little bit more over to your side, which is what you want of seller financing.
Yeah. And there is another trick, but it doesn't work every time because if the seller is a financial savvy, he will get you. But you can always say, okay, so you're asking for 100, or how much was it? 1 point?
Let's say 1.7. Yeah.
1.7 for this house, right? If I pay you in cash right now, you're going to receive 1.7, right? But if you agree on this strategy, if you agree to be my bank in 5 years, you're going to receive 1.8 million. What do you think?
Right.
Right? But as I said, if he's a financial savvy, will say, well, but the money in 5 years will doesn't have the same value as today. So, but that's a different story. So you need to play with that. So, and the last strategy that I use is always send two offers. One conventional with below asking price, and one seller finance if you can do, if you make the numbers work. The second offer is with what he wants, asking price, and then seller finance. So always two offers, and because that will make him think, right? This is much better than the other one. So
that's a great hack. So hey, one is 15 to 20% below asking, one's maybe at asking or a little bit above, but seller financed. And you say, hey, you get to pick. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. In sales, they call that the either or close. You're just being like, hey,
there you go.
You're not asking them, do you want this offer or not? Because that's a yes or no answer. You're asking them, which offer do you want? That's powerful, man. That's a hack I've never heard before. I love that.
Yeah. And another thing is the fact that while you're doing this, again, you keep building this trust, right? Which is so important to make it happen. Another thing that I would say is that with using this strategy, you can really, if it makes sense, again, I keep saying you need to run numbers, you can pay above asking or you can pay more than a conventional because you are deferring your payment, right? So as long as you make the math and it works, then you can go a little bit beyond than a conventional buyer will do.
And you're not paying all that money to a bank. So that makes a lot of sense to do seller financing.
And you need to think about it and put a number on the value that is, this loan is not affecting my DTI. This loan is not visible to the banks. They can't see that. They see that I own this property. That's it.
Where do you have to put that?
What do you mean?
That's like part of the contract, is what you're saying?
No, I mean, because
you're just saying that's how it's set up, because it's not a publicly recorded loan. It's a private loan. So the banks are going to search. They're going to see that you have the deed to this house, but no loan.
Correct. So it doesn't affect your DTI. So whenever you're going for a conventional loan, they will pull your credit from all the bureau agents, and it's not as a loan.
I love that. Wow. Well, man, that's gold. I feel like you did a great job just kind of wrapping our heads around that. And, we're going to keep this episode pretty tight and concise. I do want to just touch on two more things with you, and we can do these quickly. But, yesterday you and I spent some time just evaluating co-living deals, and we've been working together kind of in the co-living space, and just excited for your future there and how we're moving into that future. But I really think that you have an expanded mindset on how you're playing the co-living game. Most of the people that I'm working with, they're coming to me saying, okay, Sam, if I get 2, 3, 4 co-living homes, that's that's the limit of their thinking. I just want a couple co-living homes. Teach me how to find enough money to buy those homes. Teach me how to find those homes. Teach me how to manage them. But you're really taking that to the next level. And so I'd love for you to explain to people kind of how you plan to play the co-living game and what that means to you.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank you, Sam, for opening up this new door to co-living.
Thank you. My pleasure.
In Puerto Rico, which was amazing. And when you explained, something clicked in my mind, saying, well, this really makes sense. This really is recession-proof strategy. Right? And everybody's talking about recession, although the KPIs are not there yet, but everybody's saying something is coming. And I believe on the strategy because it really resonates with some my past experience where I didn't have enough money to buy my own property. I had to find some new different methods to be able to be under a roof, right? So if I had this option, it would make sense for me. So it really resonates with me, and I feel that bringing this to the community will open up the possibility that those people that can't afford the full house can live very near to their working place, right? So that was the clicking point, and I said, well, it makes sense and it makes sense here in Dallas, right? And when I realized that, well, then why don't I create a bigger service and allow other investors to do the same thing here? So that will be my strategy in co-living. I will start building my own properties, building my own business case. Therefore, I'm going to showcase and open the doors for anybody that wants to invest here in Dallas in co-living. I will be trying to somehow following your footsteps as you did in Port Charlton, with your help, of course. Trying to build this service here in Dallas, because I believe the way that the Dallas market is going so fast, so up. I mean, I keep seeing new development every day, and I don't understand how is this sustainable, right? Because if you look to Austin, things have parked there. Dallas, no, Dallas keep growing. So even though the medium price of the house is keep rising a lot. So, and that put some those blocking points to those people that really want to live in Dallas, near their home workplace.
So housing in Dallas, just like in almost every major city in the United States, is becoming unaffordable for like this working class American, right? Not for the rich people, not for even the upper middle class, but for, middle class or lower middle class of people who just make $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. And so one of the ways I want my listeners to understand this, one of the ways that Tiago is really thinking of capturing this co-living space is kind of creating a white glove service where someone could go, and this is how I'm partnering with Tiago, because I have white glove service clients who don't want to just buy in Charlotte. They want to buy in cities around the United States. They want to diversify. And so Tiago's thinking about, okay, I'm an agent in Dallas. I can help you guys find the properties. I can evaluate properties. We evaluated a 10 bedroom, what I think could potentially be a 10 bedroom. And I think if the numbers worked out, you told me it would be a 30% cash on cash. So I got kind of excited about that. I told you, I was like, sign me up. I think I went buy that one. But you're going to help people find these great deals. You'll put it in your system of management. You'll take a management fee for that, of course. You'll oversee any rehab. You'll oversee any construction that's needed to get it to co-living ready. You'll bring someone in to design the common areas. And then you'll manage it and you'll send them a check. And from that point on, you just get to continue to build kind of this co-living ecosystem in Dallas. And so I think it's a huge service. I can't tell you how many people are reaching out to me about this in cities around the United States and just expanding this. So I think you're playing it correctly. And I was so proud. I was like so excited to have someone like you who just thought bigger than just getting a couple of homes. You said, what if I created an ecosystem and helped more people with this way? So I love that, man. I love that a lot. I want to touch on one other thing. Is there anything else you want to say about what you're looking or your vision to create there in Dallas before we move on to our last subject?
No, I think you said it right. I really want to help outside investors to invest here in Dallas because it's so a stable market that I really believe it. So, and another thing that I'm trying to fulfill also a niche, which is you can't find much property managers that cover co-living, right? So that I also believe that will be an entry point.
Yeah, 100%. Well, man, as we wrap up here, one of the things I admire about you a lot is just your fortitude. I think is the right word, your positivity, your energy, and just how you are constantly moving forward. And, I know that you're going through some tough times in your life with your family, and we don't have to get into that if you don't want to, but just this idea that, you maintain a positive attitude. You have a multiple six-figure W-2 job that, pays you, but like you're also working and creating and building and investing in real estate. You have a family. Man, how do you keep it all together? And how do you do it all? And what advice do you have for someone who's just trying to keep it together, or anything you want to share on that?
I would say, first of all, it's not easy. It's life, right? And you need to accept what life pushed to you, right? With a smile. That's what I keep saying. But the way that I handle it is I'm very focused and very objective oriented, right? When I set a goal, I really trying to understand what are the steps to those goals and really work every day. Hey, am I close enough to that one, right? For example, I had the first goal to do an Ironman. It took me 8 months of training. I did it. After that, I was thinking, well, that's it. What's next? Then I found the ultra running. So I did 100 miles in Colorado. But that's something that it's a mindset thing, right? You set a goal and say, this is what fulfills me, right? And you work every day to that specific goal, right? Because you see something on the inside. So for people that are aiming to buy their first house, to have this financial freedom, set a goal, right? And with the goal, build your standards, because it's not the goal that will make it happen. It's the standards that you incorporate in your life. For example, in order for me to run 100 miles, I had to run every day. I had to run in some weekends 90 miles just for training, right? So, and those are the standards. As long as you establish your standard and saying this is what needs to be done and becomes a standard, your goals will be very, very seamless to happen. So that's the way I look into them, and that's the way that I've been driving my life.
How do you handle the emotions though, man? Like, I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. You're like, set the goal, break it down, just make sure you're 1% a day closer to that goal. And I've seen you do that, man. I've seen you even in the co-living world. You're like, this is the next step. This is the next step. This is the next step. I mean, you're a machine, man. Like, you do it. But I also feel like you have this ability to, I've seen you get emotional before. How do you handle that part of it? And I'm selfishly asking too, because I had some shit happen last year. I think we connected on this a little bit where I was just like, I did not expect. I mean, it brought me to my knees. Something with a brother. It was very close. He ended up in jail for a very long time. It was so unexpected. But like, the hardest part of that is like the feelings around it. And I know that's not what this podcast is about. This podcast is about scaling real estate, but I admire you because you're able to keep going in spite of that. So I just wondered if you had any advice or.
Well, to handle emotions, again, it's another step. It's not easy, but I would say that at least if you're surrounded with the right persons, the right community, they will able to lift you up, right? I had, as I explained, I have some health problems with my wife that really somehow strangle the way that we see the future, and therefore I purchase every second that I have with her up to now, because I don't know what the future will bring. I don't know how our life will be in the future. So therefore, every step that I took right now is really to nourish that relationship that I have and capability to move it to the next level. So in order for me to handle that emotion, it's not easy. But again, I see it the goal, and the goal is to live the life as best as I can. That's it. And for sometimes I thought to myself even, well, is this the only thing I can do? No, I can even work harder. I can even deploy myself. I can really invest more. And I realized, well, for what, right? I want to live my life, right? It's not about, again, it's not about a money, a number to your bank account. No, I want to live my life, right? And for people that have kids, and if you think that after they are 18, 17, they want to live their own lives, and you think, well, you only have 17 springs to enjoy them. And that's very powerful, right? Wow. So enjoy that moment as much as possible, because they will not coming back. So that's the way I see it life right now.
Beautiful. So well said, man. 2 final questions for you. As you've gone through this situation with your wife and these health concerns, which I know a lot of people listening can relate to in some ways, whether it's with them or a loved one or a parent or a spouse or something, what's the greatest lesson you think you've learned about life during this experience with her?
Don't count with things that are coming. You don't know what lives bring you. Enjoy the moment. How the in Latin carpe diem. Enjoy every single moment. Don't take this your present life as granted.
Wow. It's powerful, man. Well, thank you so much for your time, here and just sharing. I know we started with seller financing and real estate and ended on this, and I just grateful for you, man. Grateful for all the value you bring. I mean, one of the things, as soon as we started working together in my Inner Circle program, the first thing you said was, I want to add value. How can I add value? And I was just like, this guy, this guy is like, what a heart you have. So thank you for that. So if someone wants to reach out to you or connect with you or buy a home with you in Dallas or kind of maneuver their way into the co-living world with you in Dallas, how do they get in touch with you?
I would say the easiest way is through IG, Tiago the Investor. I will reply for sure. So that will be the best one.
All right, man. Well, we'll drop that link in the description as well, and have it on this episode. So, thanks, Tiago. I appreciate your time, and much love, brother.
No, thank you so much for having me, Sam, and for enlightening my life as always.
I will say this: that was probably the most clearly laid out seller financing explanation that I've heard in a long time. So, big thanks to Tiago for that. All right, guys, share this episode with someone that you think would benefit from it. Otherwise, much love. I will see you guys next time. Here's to your financial success.